Good evening. My name is Whitney Carr. I'm the Adult Services Manager here at Bexley Public Library. I'm so excited about tonight. Thank you for coming. I just wanted to welcome you both in person and online to celebrate National Poetry Month with us. We are so honored that Barbara Fant is here with us to talk about and read from her new book, Mouths of Garden, and also to talk with Bexley's own Maggie Smith. This is particularly special because Barbara recently moved to LA. So this is one of her first local events to promote the book. So Maggie Smith is the author of multiple poetry collections, but also national bestsellers, Keep Moving, and her most recent, Goldenrod. Her poems and essays have been widely published and anthologized, and her 2016 poem, Good Bones, you may have heard of it, went viral and has been translated in nearly a dozen languages. We're also privileged that she's our hometown poet and that this is her library. So, and then Barbara Fant has been writing and performing for 15 years. She's represented Columbus, Ohio in 9 national poetry slam competitions, winning various championships and accolades, including placing 8th out of 96 poets in the 2017 Women of the World Poetry Slam. Her work has been featured in various publications, and installations of her work can be found throughout Columbus. She's the founder of Bloom Barb Fant LLC. She's a nonprofit consultant and a teaching artist in correctional institutions and schools. Currently, she lives in LA, but she's also an artist in residence of the Harmony Project, a teaching artist at Transit Arts, co-curator of the reading series Paging Columbus, and founder of the Black Women Rise Poetry Collective. So she's very busy. Again, we're so happy she made some time to share this evening with us. So, all right, so welcome, Barbara.
All right, can y'all hear me all right? Hey, y'all. Oh my goodness. It's so good to be home, y'all. It's really, really good to be home. This is my first live performance and my first live reading this book. So I'm super excited about that. I've done some virtual events, but this is the first time I get to read from it in person, and I'm home. So thank y'all so much. This is really, this book, man, it's been a long time coming, and it's really in 4 different sections. But I really wanted to honor the city that I'm from, which is Youngstown, Ohio. So I talk a lot about that. I talk a lot about the trauma that I've experienced growing up as a young person, but it's also like an ode to the women in my family. And so I'm going to share a lot of those pieces tonight too. So thank y'all for being here. Y'all braved the rain and y'all are here. We'll start with the first poem of the book. And it's called Long Line, short title. I come from a long line of strong women who know how to birth and load rifles all at the same time, who juggle babies and careers and swallowed whole. Every man that ever learned to raise his fist, I think of fist, I think of woman, the unclenched skin of a toothless hand. When he opened his hand and showed me her teeth, I remember the powerlessness, my throat a voiceless song. I remember the wedding day, how somehow Mrs. made it feel like woman, and then the surgery, right? In the house I was thrown out of, the bruises that bloomed on my body in the morning. When I say I come from a long line of strong women, I mean I come from fire breathers, which means I come from dragons, which means I come from beings that slay. There is no gun to erase you here. These are not daddy issues, not my brokenness. Yo, this is a fist. Slice through the sky, middle finger and ring finger all side by side. When I say I come from a long line of strong women, I mean I died 1,000 times, y'all, and I always come back. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. I was hoping y'all wouldn't be quiet because I'm used to noise, where I'm reading, so y'all can make noise if y'all want to, it's cool. Just because you're in a library, it'll be good. Okay. Black woman repetition after Terrence Hayes. Black woman college degree, Black woman master's, Black woman student loans, Black woman loaned her life over to student, Black woman full-time job, single Black woman over 30, single Black woman 30, Black woman world calls bitter, Black woman bitten, angry, Black woman bitter, Black angry, broke. Is she the thing broken? Let's talk about war. Let's talk about men coming home limbless from Vietnam, Agent Orange, where Black souls should be. Let's talk about fathers. Daddy didn't come home. Black woman got daddy issues. Black woman, daddy issues. Black woman 30 still dealing with daddy issues. Black woman nurse, Black man, Black father, Black boy too afraid of his own insecurities. Black woman, Black hole. Black woman, not whole. Black woman, you are more than just a hole. Your thighs up, whole woman of Black. Black woman, you are not always the night. You are not always Black and blue. Black woman, not Jonah. Black boy, are you Jonah? What do you do when there's fear inside you the size of a whale's body? You Black woman wail. Black woman travail for Black man. Black woman pray. Black woman pray. Black woman don't be another man's prey. Yo, she swim. Black woman float, woman water. Black woman, your face not always an aquarium's explosion. Thank you. Should have put the page numbers down. I didn't really do that, so we're just gonna work with it. So I have a sestina that I want to read for y'all. This piece is really about what I kind of grew up in, and it's called A Sestina for the Scars. Starts with a quote: "Every wound leaves a scar. They're all over me." It's from a song that I heard called "Scars" by my brothers and I. Houses will always be on fire in the night. Emergency button above my head in peach bedroom. There will always be dreams of caskets, people swarming a land I do not care to know. Bullets that fly through glass for bodies to find. Stray as someone's pet, unleashed. When the anger of the streets is unleashed, a riot can be found in the mouth of the night, left for the children of broken bodies to find. Every tree has fallen fruit, smooth skin of peach or pear, plum as the blood that flows for all to know. Sometimes we are picking out our own caskets. My mother's burden was an open casket, perched for daughters before adulthood unleashed. We knew there would always be more to know, unafraid of darkness that appeared in the night. Her favorite color was always a shade of peach, a shade of sunset that she hoped we'd never find. My daddy's guns, we'd hoped to never find. All the bodies in the streets, too many young caskets. Eric got shot in his mother's face, flesh peach, a rage inside our entire neighborhood unleashed. Shayla was killed in the middle of the night. Too many young bodies for my body to know. We all have open wounds from the bodies we know. Who shot my grandmother, we will never find. My prayer search for her in the middle of the night. I wear her spirit, even when my body is a casket. Her blood inside me is a siren unleashed. The husband who turned my face peach looks like the man who turned her face peach. Fisted men who only resort to what they know. Their anger, a generational curse unleashed. History repeats herself in all the blood we find. Prayers fall when we open our mouths like caskets. Bruises shaped like bodies carving us in the night. Peach fruit falling slowly for me to find. Know how to keep myself from becoming a casket. Unleashed like a mouth catching fire in the night. Thank you. I'm going to read this poem. It is, it's about my mother and my mother's hair growing back. So my mother passed from breast cancer some years ago. And at this point, it's something because she really has been, I've lived more years without her than I lived with her in my life. So it's a weird kind of journey to be on. But when my mother got sick, when she got sick, she went through the process of chemo and radiation. And there was a process where there was a period in time where she actually got better and her hair started to grow back. And my mother always had short hair, but she always talked about how she wanted a ponytail. She always wanted a ponytail. And when her hair grew back, it grew back in like a different grade of hair. And she always wanted me to braid it. And she got the chance to wear her ponytail. And so I wrote this poem about my mother's hair growing back. When my mother's hair grew back, all she wanted was to wear a ponytail, her hair, a thick, wavy block of black ocean floating around her face. When she was younger, she never had flowing hair. Always wore short haircuts or a fro, the same shade as the night sky. When chemo chewed away her hair, we laughed about how curly it would be when it returned. And when it came back, it grew with a vengeance, a force, a reminder that it would be there to stay. No one would ever take its life away again. One of my fondest memories is braiding my mother's hair, giving her flat twists or cornrows, dyeing away all the gray and pulling it straight back into a ponytail. Her hair plaited so thick into my memory, like a braid, thoughts pulled back so straight, our moments together dangling like hair blowing in the wind. When her hair grew back, she knew it would not grow back the same. Nothing ever does. Once it has been pulled from the root, eroded from the inside, just like a memory, they never return the same. They never grow in the same exact direction. They get tangled and float out into the sky, however they want to. But just like my hands running through my mother's scalp, so carefully making parts, every strand braids into the other just the same, no matter how different, no matter what tried to destroy it, no matter what tried to erase it from its roots, it grows back. Now I'm gonna shift to this other piece that I wanna read. My sister's not here, which is good because it might make me emotional if she was. So, but I wanted to share this poem. It's for my sister. And, I heard a poet say this a while ago. It was Rachel McGivens, I think, who said this, who talked about her family and how she had family who, everybody lived through trauma, but she was the one who was given the voice and the gift to write it out. And I kind of feel like that sometimes, that like somehow God like slid this in my pocket, to be able to like write poems out. But my sister has survived so much more than what I have. But after my mother passed, she became like this covering for me in a major way. And so I want to read this poem to really honor her. For my sister. After my mother died, I was afraid to go to the bathroom by myself, to walk upstairs alone in a cold, dark house, a fossil of a home. I thought it was a dream. Clung to my sister as if I came from her. We slept on the couch together that night. After the long drive home from the hospital, my father hugged us. We all hugged. We all collapsed together on the floor. It was December. For years, it felt as if every month was December. My sister stayed with me, told me she was sorry that it was not a dream. She wished it was. She wished she could tell me that it was, that we could wake up the next morning to sounds of my mother clanking dishes in the sink, burning the bacon on the stove, the singe of smoke clouding kitchen walls. After she passed, every room was a cloud of smoke, every memory a burning kitchen. Every moment of fear roaring at me, paralyzing me from walking upstairs, from using the bathroom by myself. My sister, the sweet, gentle soul that she is, took my 15-year-old hand, walked with me up the stairs, stood outside the doorway of the bathroom. She could care less about how old I was, could care less about how old I am now. She is still my guard, clings to me as if she came from me, as if she gave birth to me. 5 years span between us entering the earth, yet she became the earth for me. Fought the ghost I could not see, swallowed pain I could not carry, packaged her own pain. She became the stairs and the hallway, the bathroom door and the clouded wall, tucked the dark house in my every fear into her throat, her every prayer, a loud scream. Thank you. How am I doing? Am I okay on time? Okay, cool. I'm gonna read this poem because so this poem, the title of it was actually the title of the manuscript, but I didn't title the manuscript that, or I changed it once it was going to be published. But this poem is important to me. It's short, but it's important to me because I grew up in the hood, right? And I wanted to almost humanize drug dealers and gangsters, right? I think that there's always two sides to every story. And this is my poem. Like, if you think about Nino Brown, if y'all have watched New Jack City, right? Nino Brown, harmed the community because he was selling drugs to the community, but he also was passing out turkeys, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, he also was like making sure cats had Christmas gifts. And so this is that poem. I actually don't use the N-word in my everyday speech, but I'm going to use it here because it's in the poem. So my gangster, my garden. Nigga, everything I touch is green. I grew the trees they tried to swing us from. I plant seeds and my hands become the seeds. I redden mouths until they bloom green. Watch how this smile make a meal for this whole hood. They made a meal out of my whole hood. Nigga, my grills be a garden. Why wouldn't I take back what's mine? Show this land how to sustain itself. I feed them other niggas until they dig their own graves. Then we grow a garden on top of the bodies. Then we turn vegetation into vegetative state. They claim me green and call me royalty of this jungle. I am the tree they thought I would swing from. I am a garden. Make meals of these bodies until we can all feast. Thank you. Yeah, so we're gonna stay in the hood. I have this poem that I want to read for y'all. I just gotta find the page, but I had a beautiful time growing up in the hood. You know, it was hard, but I had some wonderful experiences there, and I wouldn't be the person that I was if I hadn't. My dear friend is here, who I've known since first grade. So she knows. I'm not gonna blow up her spot because then she's gonna get embarrassed, but she's here and she understands. So this poem is called On the Block on Falling on Love. The boys on the block don't cry for their absent fathers. Their absent fathers don't have faces. The boys on the block wear their absent fathers' faces. The boys on the block don't cry. In Youngstown, Ohio, bottom of Todd Lane, north side, the trees bend themselves into the wind away from bullets. My mama used to tell me, bend down. When the earth can no longer protect you, the earth will not protect you. Only God can protect the bones he has created. On the last day of 7th grade, I found home in a boy. And we held on to each other. No matter how aflame or frozen or bloody the block was, he bent down when the earth could no longer protect me. Even now, I want him to be that innocent again. Skin all summer bronze melting into a browner shade. I wish us time before our loved ones' hands lined the walls of a prison, before any of our mothers found the pills, before either of our mothers found the grave, before the gun stole Eric from our lives. Before Shayla was found shot point blank with her boyfriend, the baby left on the bed, just swimming in all that blood. The boys on the block don't cry. The boys on the block swallow the swelling oceans back into their eyes, sweep the pain beneath their lids, and call it the earth. Thank you. How am I doing? How am I doing? We good? Good? A few more? Okay, we'll keep it going. Okay, cool. Y'all doing all right? Yeah, okay, cool. Cool. So, all right, I think I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna switch it up, and I was gonna read this piece, but I think I need something a little bit lighter. So I'm gonna read this piece from my auntie. So, you know, after my mother passed, I ended up living with my aunt. And what's funny is, like, my childhood friend who's in the room, like I said, I'm not gonna blow up her spot, but when I went to go stay with my aunt, actually, she lived right next door. And then another childhood friend of ours lived directly across the street. So, like, our entire like high school career was like, we for real became family. I mean, we were already family, but we for real became family. That has nothing to do with this poem, but I felt like I should share that. But this is from my aunt. It's called Give Auntie a Break. Her backbone low, shaved to ground, almost into clay, almost into dust. Return back a woman, and only smoke falls into a mouth. Halos of fire encase her. She remembers she owes nothing to no one. Paid everyone's tears. Opened her body like a house and never charged rent. It is here. She remembers she took in your behind when mommy died and daddy said no more. She clothed you in winter as the sun scraped tomorrow from your spine, made sure you graduated on time, never missed a meal, couldn't keep you from all the funerals, but held your hand through every service here. You can collapse into stone and send prayers for those who don't know how to call on God. You call on God like your auntie's life depends on it. She called on God when you almost didn't make it. So when she calls, right before the streetlights go out, even if there are 9 cities between you, even if you are almost in your Jesus year and sleeping next to your lover's protection of a body, answer her. Sing a praise to God in the key of her mouth. She is your mother's sister, your grandmother's baby girl, held the world in her hands and tossed it all to the wind to cradle you safe in her palms. Breathe your voice through the phone for her. Let her know tonight you made it home safe. You know, sometimes that's all they want from us, right? They just want to know we made it home safe, right? So call your mommy, call your auntie, call your grandma, call whoever it is. Maybe I'll do 2 more. Okay, cool. Oh, good. Yes, I want to do this poem. So this poem is for my paternal grandmother, who passed. Her life. Was that me? Sorry. Okay. Her life was taken violently, but she played the keys. She played the keys for our church. She was the church pianist for years, 32 years, I think. And I came out playing the keys. I don't really know how I knew how to do it. It just always made sense to me. And I believe I got that from her. So this poem is called What a Mighty God. It's a childhood song that, well, it's not a childhood song. It's a gospel song, but we sang it in the choir. I remember singing it as a young girl. What a mighty God we serve. What a mighty God we serve. Angels bow before him. Heaven and earth adore him. What a mighty God we serve. There is a piano that sits inside Union Baptist Church. My grandmother's name etched into gold-plated front frame, Lonnie Bell. Music from the heavens, voice from the Lord himself. What a mighty God we serve. Growing up, going to church was not an option. White tights, fluffy socks, and a dress, always a dress. Forced to always do something. Choir, usher board, plays, vacation Bible school, you name it, I did it. Heaven and earth adore him. Never flocked to singing, but the keys were my first language. Before I knew the notes, I could hear them moving through my body like blood, as if my grandmother herself came to plant music into my palms. Angels bow before him. My father knew all the hymns on guitar or the keys, bought me a piano, an organ, a keyboard, and a guitar, just in case I decided to learn his language. He was my first teacher, his mother, my muse. Heaven and earth adore him when I forget who I am. I remember where I came from, that there was always music in my body that moved my soul before I knew I had one, gave me language before I knew to speak, gave me psalms before I learned to pray. Angels bow before him in my every poem. There is a piano clawing herself into a piece of my freedom. I am gospel and fire, warrior and song, poem and blood, burden and joy, black and white keys that braid themselves into gray dust. Heaven and earth adore him when I forget who I am. I remember that God breathed into nostrils, breath into bone, until it learned it had a spine and walked. What a mighty God we serve. What a mighty God we serve. Thank y'all. All right, this is my last poem, and I think we're gonna jump into the Q&A or something. Okay, cool. Oh, we're chatting. Maggie said we're chatting. We're chatting. Okay. Watch your mouth. When you know the power of your mouth, you watch your words. Speak life to dead bones. Ezekiel, make these dry bones live. My life has been a slingshot. Stretched so far back, I thought it was completely over, but God turned a catastrophe into a catapult, a massacre into a miracle, every broken bone into a bridge over waters troubled and triumphant. I learned to walk on it with a tongue made of flames and a Nazarene name made in their image. Out of the dens of lions pulled from what tried to consume me, let these dry bones live. When you know the power of your mouth, you're more careful with your words. Scripture in my throat, a scroll unraveling from my rib cage. I came to breathe life to the darkness, cause these dead bodies to rise. And sometimes that means my own. Thank y'all so much. Thank you. Maggie, would you like to join me on the stage? Y'all give it up for Maggie Smith.
Oh, please.
Maggie Smith.
Hi. Can you hear me? Am I? Yes. Yeah, I can hear me. So you can probably hear me too. Friend,
Hi, friend.
that was incredible.
Thank you.
I'm so glad we got to hear those poems here. I was thinking back to seeing some of those poems in their earliest stages and talking through them. And so to hold this thing in my hands that is like so many years of work.
Yeah.
It means a lot. When I forget who I am, I remember where I came from.
Mm.
And I'm thinking about a sentence from Hanif's blurb on the back. This book builds a world and then does everyone and everything within the world justice. Right? Goosebumps. I mean, come on. I know it's important, but I would love to hear you talk about the importance of place in these poems, particularly because we're in Ohio, where we're happy to have you back for a while.
Oh, I'm happy to be here.
And we want to keep you, but we understand that this weather is not much of a draw.
I do like the sunshine.
I know. But the thing about home is that it's always here for you.
Amen.
Right?
Amen to that. That's
So
right.
You can come back anytime.
Thank you, Maggie.
But it's so much a part of this book and so much a part of these poems. And I would love to hear you talk about sort of why that's important in your work.
Yeah. I mean, that's the place I write from. Thank you for that. I would not be who I am had it not be for the streets that grew me up. So it's incredibly important, especially like I have dreams, right? Like we all have dreams, we all have goals, we all want to go and grow, but you don't get far without your community. Like I don't get far without the people that built me. Like, look at this room, you know what I mean? This is community. And so I know that. I know the importance of having the people that built me, the family, the blood that runs through me. That's why I am who I am today. That's what gave me voice. And so it's a part of everything I write, not just this book, but it's going to be a part of everything that I write, even in the future.
Same. I can't get out though. So I'm living vicariously through you.
You can always come.
I'll come visit.
Okay, cool.
I mean, really, the funny thing is, I don't know. I think we actually met for the first time in Los Angeles.
We did. So, well, we didn't meet for the first time, but you didn't know who I was.
We didn't know each other until then.
Well, I came to Maggie's readings. She didn't know who I was though, but I was like, Maggie, can you sign my book, please? I was one of those people. And then we went to LA when I was doing my MFA, and then Maggie was like guest teaching there. And I was like, no way. I was like, I want her as my mentor. And that's what built our relationship. And so she's seen all these poems, and they're all many stages.
And all their stages. And they were good from the beginning.
I wouldn't say that, but thank you.
I will say that. Although I have to say, I'm so glad you read that, Sestina.
Are you?
Because one of the things I wanted to ask about, because I remember being in LA, and you, for years and years and years, have been so well known, both in the slam world and as a published poet. Like you do it all. You're doing it all. And I'm just, I'm curious about sort of like how you incorporated form into some of these poems, like even the erasure that's not an erasure. There's a poem in this book that's like, was gonna be an erasure, but I actually couldn't, it's like I couldn't erase any of the words, so you get to see them all anyway. And I would love to hear a little bit about what, like maybe what form has offered you, or sort of what the opportunity or challenges have been with form, because obviously a poem is different in the air than it is on the page.
That's true. I think form for me was a challenge because I'm used to performance. I'm used to this kind of free writing. I've always been somebody who did a lot of like free writes. And then when I got into slam, you don't really have to have any forms. Like I've been slamming since I was 18, so form has always challenged me. It's forced me to write into a certain format and forced me to get my thoughts together and shave off what doesn't need to be there. Oh. And I needed to do that, especially with this book. I tried many different variations of different things, but I'm glad you brought up the erasure, because I almost read that poem. I didn't read it, but I didn't read it because it's such an emotional piece. And I thought about it earlier today and I was like, nah, I can't do that. But I tried to write an erasure when writing that piece, but I felt like the words were too important to the story that I needed to keep it intact and not make people sift through it. So I did. But form challenges me, So if you're a writer who needs to be challenged, push yourself to write in form. That's what it did for me.
Yeah. And even transform it, like the anti-erasure. Like what would happen if you made your own rules and pushed back a little bit? I have to say, though, it's interesting to me that one of the forms you used is a form that relies on repetition. Because even if you think you don't use form in slam, you do. You do. Because so much of that is about refrain and repetition, and also taking a word, HOLE, and then using it 2 lines later as WHOLE.
That's true.
And you're hearing it. So it's in there. It's just not typed that way.
That's true.
Necessarily, right?
That's what the page offers you.
Yeah.
Like you can play around with that a whole lot more than you can in slam. In slam, I learned to edit based off my breathing patterns, not based off of what it looks like on the page. So that was like a growth and a challenge for me. But in slam, if it didn't come out the right way, I needed to shave off words. I needed to get it together so I could breathe through the piece and not fly through it, right? But get it in time. And this is a different mindset.
Well, I would say that wordplay is one of your superpowers.
Superpower.
But imagery is also one of your superpowers. What? Come on now. And so I'm curious, because I don't think this is something we've talked about. I'm curious about where your poems, how they come knocking. Like do they often begin as like a phrase that you can't sort of let go of, or do they begin as like a metaphor, like, oh, this is kind of like this, how can I extend that? Or is it an image? Because the imagery is so powerful in this book, especially I think the interplay between the sort of violent imagery and then this sort of like lush growth imagery, is the interplay of that is just so powerful. And I'm wondering if that's where some of your poems start.
Yeah, thank you. A lot of my poems start in images.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I get visions or I have dreams. And specifically with this book, I think a lot of it comes from memory. So I'm playing around with images that I saw. And that's the wild thing about trauma, is that it erases so much. Like my friend who's in the room, she just messaged me the other day. It's a little group text. And we were talking about this dance that we did in high school. I have no memory of that dance. It's crazy, like what trauma does. It like erases things. So what I tried to play around with in this book is just the images that immediately came to me. The ones that stay with me, the ones that I can't get rid of, the ones like waking up in the middle of the night and there's houses on fire. Those kinds of things is what I tried to really give the immediacy of that in this book.
It's happening.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I love that you described it as visions, right? It's like those sort of like Polaroids in the mind that kind of like we shuffle through them and they kind of get stuck in there.
Yep.
And like you were saying, that God slipped this gift in your pocket as a way to sort of sort through those Polaroids.
Yeah.
And what might we be if we didn't have a place to put them?
My goodness.
Right? I mean, I think about that all the time. Like where might we be if we didn't have a place to put things?
Oof. I don't know where I would be.
I don't know. Well, because I think there are probably writers in the room. You said something about reading that poem for your sister, which was powerful.
Thank
And I
you.
can't imagine reading that with the subject in the room, like how you would have to really avoid eye contact with that person.
Yep.
And because I write a lot about my family, I know the sort of like pressure that we can put on ourselves, like, okay, am I doing this story justice? Am I doing this person justice? Or even if you're writing about something painful, can I say this?
Right.
Can I describe this? What if so-and-so sees it? What if, do I have permission to do this? And if, you know, who grants permission?
Right. Yeah.
I think we grant ourselves permission, but I'm wondering how, if you struggle with that at all in writing about personal stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Of course I did. I struggled with that incredibly, you know, with this book. And, you know, you've seen the earlier versions of it. So all the names are changed, you know, like just things like that. And I think I had to figure out, is this story important enough to tell? Like, is it worth that risk? And I really wrestled with that. But I feel like what I landed on was the stories were worth the risk. So I needed to tell them. And there's a few in there that I wrote in voice. My Gangsta My Garden is one of them, but there's another one in there where it's a friend of mine who lost her life violently, but I needed to tell her story. It was worth the risk.
I like that. It was worth the risk. It's 1:45. I am happy to monopolize the conversation because I have more questions than I can possibly. Actually, no, I want to ask one more question. I'm going to ask one more question while they see if there are questions in the chat and while you all think of what you might be willing to stick your arm in the air for. I wanted to end with a question about joy.
Oh, yeah.
So I have a sign in my front window, like a sort of a canvas banner, like a pennant that hangs in my front window where my office is. And it's a line from the poet. Do you know who it is? Toy Derricotte.
Yes.
Do you know what the line is?
Joy is an act of resistance.
Joy is an act of resistance. I've had some interesting conversations with electricians, plumbers, people who come to my house and they see that banner in the front window and then they want to talk about it. Like I talked to a guy from AEP about that line of poetry in my front yard for a while last year. And he was like, can I just stop you for a minute? Can I just ask what that means? And I was like, well, you know, I didn't write it. It's not mine. But what I think it means is like in difficult times, we need to hold tightly onto that as a sort of like joy feels defiant when things are really difficult.
Yes.
And so I said that and he was like, oh, I like that. I'm going to take that with me. And then he climbed back in his truck and I was like, I don't know what conversations that man is having with his people after this, but it's probably one of the more interesting visits he had to fix the electricity in Bexley that day.
I love it.
But I want to know what's bringing you joy right now. Like what's feeding you right now?
Ooh, that's so good. That's such a good question. But I also want to bring up that I use that a lot. Joy is an act of resistance. And there's a definition of joy by Khalil Gibran. And I heard Lupita Nyong'o actually quote it. She rephrased it. And it was that joy is not the absence of pain, but it's happiness in spite of it. And so I try to use that as I'm thinking about joy, right? So it's not that these things, the pain, frustration, it's the darkness, it's not that it doesn't exist, it's that you can push through that. And that's where you get joy. You know, it sits in the belly of that. And so what's feeding me right now? My guitar. I got a new guitar, y'all. And that feeds me. I love it. Also reading, I'm reading Ocean Vuong's book right now.
The new poetry collection?
It's not the new I'm behind.
Oh, well, no,
So
I mean, it just came out.
Yeah,
this week,
I saw
so
that.
you're not that behind.
Okay, I'm a little behind though, but reading, and then also with this collective, that there's some ladies that are part of our collective, or the Black Women Rise Poetry Collective. We're writing a poem a day. And of course, it's 30-30, it's April, y'all, but we actually started ahead of time and we wrote 42 out of 42. And so we've been writing a poem a day for a while now, and that's been actually feeding me. And like seeing the poems come through, I'm gonna shout out Auntie and Tiff and Tasha who are in the room, and seeing poems come through, that feeds me. Yeah.
I love that. 42 out of 42. I love that you're an overachiever. You're like 30 poems in the month of April is not enough. Like, let's get a head start on that. And that's what makes you you.
Oh
my gosh. I love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I like the joy as being sort of like happiness and spite.
Yes.
Yes. It's sort of like the LA sunshine is going to feel really good because you've been in the Ohio rain.
Yes.
Like you need a little bit of both.
Yeah,
right?
you need that balance.
I know.
You need that balance. So I love it. It's good to be home now for sure. Yeah.
We had an interesting question on the chat from Jen. She says, Barbara, your delivery is so melodic and musical. And as someone who plays piano, do you think of poems from a musical perspective?
You know, I don't often think of them from a musical perspective, but when we were talking about images and the lines that come into my head, sometimes they come that way, right? And I put them on the page. But I hear music, I'm very in tune with it. I said I was playing the keys before I actually was writing anything. And so it just kind of comes to me that way. But I'm working on writing songs. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm working on it. So thank you for the question.
You were just going to ask that. Are you writing songs?
I'm working on it.
I mean, a poet with a guitar and the ability to play piano, it's sort of just...
I'm not that great at it, but one day I'm going to get my courage up and then I'm going to come and, perform for y'all.
Do you mind repeating the question just for the sake of audience?
Oh, sure. I'll try to do your wording justice because actually it was such a well-articulated question. I was just like, wait, now I have to take her beautiful words and no, it's fine. I'm going to do my best. So the question was about if you poems as healing. And so if you've sort of processed something enough to be able to write it down and put it on the page, then when you go back, because now it's living outside of you on the page, when you go back and read that poem or perform that poem, do you have a different relationship to the event? Is that? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Zoom audience was better the first time. That was my rephrasing. Okay. Pop quiz.
Pop quiz.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for that question. And thank you for the rephrasing of that question. Yes, I think healing is a process, right? So I don't think I enter spaces saying I'm healed from this, right? I think healing for me is always a process. But yes, to the fact that I do eventually experience the poem differently. And I may even, I know like Will Evans has said this before, that you really only write two or three poems. The rest of them are always like a rephrasing of that poem. So I feel like, that the poem will show up in a different phase. It'll show up with a different face in a different phase. In another way, because of the process of healing that I've gone through. So yes, I experience it differently, but I also feel like I'm always in this process of healing. When I go back and read the poem, I know that I'm on the other side of it, because when I go back and read it out loud, I don't have that same emotional response. But there are times where I'm in it, I'm in that, and I can feel it all the way through when I'm reading it. Yeah. I hope that answers the question. Okay, cool.
Advice to your younger self.
Advice to your younger self. Thank you, Kay. I tell myself a lot of things. What not to do. Oh my goodness. The main thing I would have said is keep going, because you have no idea how bright the future is. That's what I would have told myself. Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Tell us about the title. How to sell. Personally, I think titles are so hard. So, first, the title come last. How many other titles did you have? Talk about that.
Yeah, thanks, Christy. Good to see you. The title came last. The manuscript actually had a whole nother title. It was My Gangsta, My Garden. And we talked about this. Maggie was like, that's it. And Maggie actually was like, put that poem first. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I really want to do that. So we went back and forth with that.
I don't always know. That's the thing.
She's incredibly wise. Okay. But the title came last. And the title, I really felt like was more of like the overarching theme of what I was trying to do with the book, which was to show that, you know, my life has been a myriad of things, but everything that I've experienced in my life has been a seed. And every, you know, we talk about generational curses, but I also want to think about generational blessings, right? And everything that's been poured into me has been a seed, and life has watered those seeds. And it's from there that we have the opportunity to bloom those things from our mouths. And that's really like the image that I was trying to encompass with the title of the book. Thank you. Is that it? Okay.